Alright, what's going on, guys? Sorry for the long delay, but I am back, and today let's talk about Midsommar. So, Midsommar is a 2019 film directed by Ari Aster, stars Florence Pugh, who plays our main character Dani, and this film follows Dani right after she experiences a family tragedy where her mother, father, and sister all commit suicide. She then learns that her boyfriend Christian is going on a trip to Sweden over the summer for the Midsommar festival and traditions that happens once every 90 years. She wants to tag along, and we really begin to get a feel for the disruption and disconnect between Dani and Christian and just how awkward their relationship is. From afar, it's pretty obvious that these two aren't really on too great of terms, and it becomes a theme for the entire movie. Now, I will say this is going to include spoilers, so if you haven't seen it and you don't want it to be ruined for you, I suggest going and watching it right away. It's a great film, by the way. But if you've seen it, then let's get into it. So, upon seeing the trailer, or maybe if you just see the poster and a couple of pictures from the movie, you might assume this is a folk horror and it just takes place with a bunch of Americans that go over to Sweden and then discover that they got themselves into something pretty sinister. However, it really isn't that as much. I would say you could even make an argument for this being a breakup movie. And if you watch Ari Aster talk about this film from its very first screening, I've always heard him say that this isn't really considered a horror movie, although I think much of the outside world would view it as that. He thinks it might be more of a drama with horrific elements to it, and I can definitely see why. There's a lot of different like subplots and storylines that are going on while these Americans are also in a foreign place. First of all, you have Dani and Christian, who are our two main characters, although Dani is ultimately the main character. They're going through relationship issues. Dani is 100% invested and wants to make this relationship work, while it might not be because she actually wants the relationship. She might just feel lonely and vulnerable because she just lost her whole family, basically. Whereas Christian is trying to pull away and he kind of feels responsible for Dani's emotions. That's how I look at it. Christian is he seems to be a very selfish person for a couple reasons. Anytime that Dani has an emotional breakdown, he kind of views it as her just using that as a tactic to make him feel worse. And let's just say that for both of these characters, this relationship is not good whatsoever. Another subplot is all of the American characters in this movie are medical students, with the exception of Dani, although I believe it's psychology that her major is. So, and Christian and Josh are constantly arguing about a thesis because they both want to do it on the Nordic culture and the Swedish Midsommar traditions. And something that's really funny that Ari Aster talked about in one of his interviews about this film after it first released is he said, "There's nothing that exemplifies the meaningless of life more than two people arguing about a thesis." And I thought that was just really funny and pretty accurate too. Another thing we have going on throughout this is a possibility of Pele, who is a friend of the Americans that is a native Swede who invites them to Sweden in the first place, and which we learn he is actually from this small commune and community, and in which the Americans go and stay when they go over to Sweden. He might be secretly in love with Dani, and just throughout the movie, we get clues and then we get actual examples of how he feels towards her and how he feels like he would treat her better than Christian treats her. Other horror movies we've seen, and actually a lot, slowly each outsider gets picked off and killed in a different way. And ironically, or not ironically, as Americans, mostly it's all because of them disrespecting this culture and everybody pretty much being set up to fail, basically, in this new foreign environment. There's so much to love about this movie. Let's just start off by saying that if you want to watch a movie just for the visuals and just for something being pretty, like if it's that shallow, this is the movie for you. I mean, it's very unique that a horror film would be filmed mostly in the daytime and you get this Swedish countryside, all the plants and just nature and wildlife is just in full bloom in summer. It's a beautiful movie, and everything as far as the visuals go is great. I love the fact that Ari Aster put a lot of effort into trying to understand the Swedish culture and making these things seem realistic. A lot like Hereditary, this deals a lot with family. Hereditary, I feel like Hereditary was a family that was slowly descending into madness, and everything that was destined to happen in their lifetime separated them and pushed them apart. Whereas Midsommar is someone who already lost her family, and she thinks the people that are closest to her, being her American friends, are her family. She slowly realizes that this new community that she's been brought into all along is the family that she's wanted and needed, basically. So Dani seems to be almost targeted by this community, and in a positive way, though. It seems like they ultimately want her to be the May Queen, and there's a lot of sacrifices in the movie. There's actually 9 people that get sacrificed. Some of them are willingly sacrificed, and then some of them are killed, such as, the American. Everything seems well placed, and I love the fact that it's not just like, oh, it's a weird, like, coldish kind of movie where everyone in this, commune is just evil, and they all turn on the Americans. It seems a lot more believable for their belief system and for their personal preferences to just be totally different from the Americans, which ultimately leads to the horror that we see in this movie. So in the end, Dani wins the May Queen competition. She's crowned with a beautiful headdress of flowers and everything else. And after discovering that Christian has mated with one of the native Swedish women, it comes time for her to choose a final sacrifice to the gods, and Christian is one of the nominees. She ends up picking him, and they are all placed inside this little shelter. I don't even know what you could call it. I wouldn't call it a hut. And it is then burned down. And at first, Dani is overcome with terror and everything. She just saw people burn alive, and there's smoke in the air, and she can't take it. But then she slowly realizes that all of these people who have been sacrificed, and especially the American friends that she was with that weren't really in her best interest, it seems like she recognizes the symbolism of all of these negative things she's had in her life, and all of these negative influences being burned away, and her being able to just basically start clean. And it seems to me as if it's a restart of her life in general, so kind of a rebirth. So I love Midsommar. There's very, very few things that I could say are flawed about this movie, and all of you guys go and check it out ASAP if you haven't seen it. I'm going to give Midsommar a 4 out of 5 for overall score. Now let's get to the sketch. Okay, so here we have the drawing. This is a drawing of Dani shortly after she was originally crowned May Queen, and this is just a sketch. It's not a fully refined drawing or anything, but basically just a graphite drawing in my sketchbook. And I didn't really spend a whole lot of time on this, to be honest, and it's a little hard to tell because of the video quality, but in the reference that I was working from, there's not a whole lot of contrast in her face, or this area of her neck was the darkest part of her skin at all. So I think the whole thing looks a little gray. But yeah, like I said, that's why I really tried to make these little moments in her in between her lips, nostrils, and then the insides of her eye, and even in the middle part of the eyebrow. I really tried to
darken those up more, and I feel like they are the most eye-catching parts of this sketch. As far as her like floral crown, I didn't really detail it at all. I just kind of like did a lot of like loose shapes and then I shaded it in, and I feel like from afar you get the effect of a bunch of like flowers and grass and all kinds of stuff. So that's pretty much it for this video. Thank you guys once again for watching, and this is going to be the new format of the channel. I hope you guys like it, and if you have any recommendations or certain videos you want to see, certain things you want to see me draw, just comment. I'll see you guys later. Have a good one.